Welcome to this edition of Great Books, a lively discussion of a selection from the canon of exceptional literature. Here's your host, Jack Hatfield.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us for the Great Books Show. I'm Jack Hatfield. Our panel meets periodically to discuss great works of classic and modern literature. Les will introduce our selection for today, The Man Who Loved Islands, a short story by D.H. Lawrence. Les?
David Herbert Richard Lawrence, D.H. Lawrence, was born in England in 1885. He died in France in 1930 in self-imposed exile. He's buried in Taos, New Mexico. Lawrence was much more than just a writer of controversial books. He was also a painter, a poet, essayist, playwright, translator, world traveler, and a literary critic. Our reading is Lawrence's The Man Who Loved Islands. This short story provides a unique insight into the personality and, one might say, the soul of a man who could be considered bordering on recluse. As with any good story, the metaphors abound on many levels regarding the meaning of one's life and how it is lived. Each of the three islands reflects the lead character's attempt to create a perfect Eden to meet his personal, psychological, and physical needs. These islands get smaller and smaller as the story unfolds until the owner of these islands ends up on a small crag in what appears to be the North Sea. Here he finds complete solitude, but not the paradise he's been seeking. We leave Cathcart standing on his rock in the ocean and commenting, "Soon it will all be gone, and in silence, regions nothing will be alive." He felt a cruel satisfaction in the thought, death is his final journey.
Well, my first question has to do with the title. Why does the man love islands? What drove him on this journey of his?
I think he's kind of a recluse, as we said. He's not comfortable in society, and he creates his own society, especially on the large island. And things don't go all that well after about 4 years with that process. I don't know what he's in search of, but I think he's a man seeking meaning.
A man seeking?
Meaning.
I think by cutting himself off in various stages, he gets more control, he thinks, over his own life. He's free from the demands of a wife or other people or the things they need done for them until he's alone, and he sees how he likes that.
I thought it was very telling that the narrator referred to him as the master. The master.
And the big well, his people
and
call him the master.
Right.
The people that work for him.
Yeah.
I think the title should have been The Man Who Loved Islands and Hated People.
Well, you know, when he first went to the first island, there was something going on that he needed people. Right?
Yes.
So he added people there, and it didn't quite work out.
He needed workmen.
He always needed people.
Yeah.
But you know, did they need an island to create the life? That's one of the questions that the man who loved islands. He went to the islands to create a life, what he identified as the perfect life.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted.
Right.
Okay. Do you have to go away to do that? Do you have to go to an island?
Yeah.
You have to limit your relationships and your responsibilities, and maybe that was the only way he could do it.
Well, at the end, he couldn't stand any sense at all that a human being had.
Yeah.
He hated.
He lost his humanity.
He
Yes.
absolutely lost his humanity.
How do you think this related to the famous quote, "No man is an island" by Donne?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
I think that was his point of departure, and that he took it literally and tried to portray how it would be if a man decided to become an island unto himself. Donne says you need other people, and here is an experiment with getting rid of people. I think it's implied strongly.
I don't think he's trying to get rid of people necessarily. He's trying to get rid of somebody else telling him what to do.
Even when he has his own will imposed and tells people to love it, it's not good enough for him. He gets rid of those people. So he wants complete control.
Yeah, he does want control.
Yeah.
And why does it depart?
Why did it fall apart with the people?
It says in here somewhere that it
Somebody
wasn't
smirked and he knew that they didn't really like him.
That's
second line
his
is he
movement
wanted-
towards dementia, I think, when he's getting to that point. Because he states early on here, strangely, from your little island in space, you were gone forth into the dark, great realms of time, where all the souls that never die veer and swoop into the vast, strange errands. So I think he's describing something there. There's something
Some paranoia.
spiritual about him. I mean, there's some reference to spirituality in here as well, but he goes from island to a smaller island till he's completely by himself. And I think the process is part of what the story's about, how he evolves from someone that lives in society to someone that becomes a complete hermit and a recluse. And I think in the process of doing this, he's seeking meaning.
Yeah.
In the
Not
passage,
finding it.
But the premise that he needs society, is that what you said?
Well, initially
Because
he did. Initially he
Well,
did.
he wanted
an
to
Eden.
create the perfect life.
Exactly, right.
Okay, and he needed society for that. Is that the point you're making?
Right.
At first, yeah.
So, and then he progresses to, well, he has an affair with the cook's daughter, and he comments on that when he sees the child, that he was revulsed by the child. And he's got some real sexual hang-ups here in this thing on how he's dealing with
It
his
wasn't very
feelings.
good sex, he said.
No, it wasn't.
It's too automatic.
Yeah,
I think that's the term.
yeah,
term
yeah.
he used.
Not like
He
Lady
depersonalized
Chatterley's
it.
lover.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I thought that passage that you were reading, where he essentially sees ghosts of past, is starting to go nuts. I mean, he's really losing touch with reality there.
Well, the ghosts or the zombies represent, I think, the demands of society. The people past and their heritage of settlement and civilization, society. And so it wouldn't do to be on the big island where he was.
If you go back to Jack's original question about the title, The Man Who Loved Ireland, did this guy love Ireland?
Well, he was born on an island.
I know he was born on an island, but where in the story do we find him in love? And, now, it's interesting when he talks about islands, he talks to them like they respond to him, like they're human beings. What's that about?
Well, he does, on my second page, he says, our islander loved his island very much. And then he goes on for a whole paragraph about nature. The gray rock, the blackbirds, all that good thing. Then skipping down, skipping a paragraph, he says, the island, your island, cowered dark, holding away from you. You could feel down in the wet, somber hollows this resentful spirit coiled upon himself, like a wet dog coiled in the gloom, or a snake that is neither asleep or awake. And I was thinking, that's a paragraph apart,
Yeah, right.
and a very different view of the island.
Well, that's the narrator speaking,
Yeah.
telling us what to think about the guy. Because if it's your island, he's talking to you like you might be the guy. That there's this sleeping, malevolent force out there, and
Well, it
then
doesn't
we see
start
it get
until
him.
autumn or winter comes.
But I think that goes with the spirits that he encounters, and there's this malevolent force that exists on the island, and he thinks he can get rid of it by jumping to a smaller place.
I read
More
it slightly
control.
different. Throughout the whole thing, he's really into birds and fauna and all that.
Nature.
Originally.
Yeah, and he's saying the nature part of it is great. Then he's reflecting his own inner turmoil or whatever is overriding that sense of nature, and that's where he gets that feeling of a snake coiled,
See, I'm thinking that the narrator is warning you, watch out, you can reject people, but you can't reject nature, and that's what does him in. That you can control lots of things, but you can't control the snow, you can't control the ocean.
Yeah.
You can't even
rejects
control people. They swindled him.
But people rejected him, which I didn't get, because here he is trying to create this perfect life and this perfect society, and the people say yes, call him master, and they end up making fun of him.
Well, because he knew they meant it facetiously.
Yeah, well,
He didn't like them either. It didn't really say which came first.
That's right.
Well, here's how the guy comments on it on page 165 for you guys who got it. It's doubtful whether any of them really liked him, man to man or even woman to man, but then it is doubtful if he really liked any of them as man to man or man to woman. He wanted them to be happy and the little world to be perfect. But listen to this, I wonder what you guys made of this, but anyone who wants the world to be perfect must be careful not to have real likes or dislikes. A general goodwill is all you can afford. And the general goodwill is always felt as something of an insult, and that's why the people didn't like him. He goes on to say that. He says, surely a general goodwill is a form of egoism, that it should have been such a result. Well, if somebody's full of ego, you're going to react against them, especially if you're a swindler, as these people are going to take advantage of them. And isn't that what eventually happened?
Right, it's a juxtaposition of what Eden is and what we think it is and what it really is underneath. There is no such thing as a perfect place, not when you have human beings involved in it.
Or nature.
Or nature, right. Notice the reference to flowers and stuff in here, and his wife, her name is Flora.
Sure.
That's right. So
That's right.
I
don't need no flora.
He's doing well with the use of language in this. I think it was very well written.
Well,
Is this guy a nice guy?
He's screwed up. I mean, he's not a bad guy.
His heart was in the right place. His head was all messed up.
He wanted good things. He just didn't know what they were.
Yeah. And he was kind to the people.
Right, yes, he was.
He was very good.
He was a good master.
Yeah.
He played it by the book, but
He took
Need a
care of
heart.
Flora, even though he left her, but he took care of her.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, she seduced him, and that made him mad because he didn't want to be controlled that way.
Right.
But he kept on giving into it. But then he said, and if it only had been, he talked about what the right kind of relationship between the two of them would have been. But he always tried to do well by her.
Yes,
He
he did.
left her, but she wanted more. She was more human and willing to give. He couldn't give because he wanted control. He had to be perfect. It's almost like the perfect was the enemy of the
he
good.
couldn't give of himself. He was such an egotist and such a solipsist that the sex was automatic. He complained about that.
But he liked it.
Well, he liked it for its own sake, but he didn't like her. He didn't like her.
Right.
He worked on the premise there's no such thing as bad sex.
He just didn't have a soul or a heart to tolerate people.
I think what either Bob or Les said at first, he was always searching for an answer, and he couldn't find it in other people or nature or anything else. He did, getting back to what Jake was saying is that anyone, just quoting him, anyone who wants the world to be perfect must be careful not to have real likes or dislikes. Then later on, this is at the second island, I think, he said the strange stillness from all desire was a kind of wonder to the islander. He didn't want anything. So he's kind of trying different things that
And then he
none of them
asked
work for him.
himself, is this happiness?
Yes.
And that's what also broke up his relationship with the woman. There was something about it. It was her will. And he didn't want to be trapped by her will. He wanted his will to prevail.
I kind of saw a little bit of Faustus in this. An intelligent man with all the books and doing a lot of reading, and he can't find happiness. And so he's got a problem with it. And he doesn't solve his own problem. He just continues to let it fester, I think, until it finally overcomes him.
Well, you said he didn't reach out to people, but it said he was a kind of pity for her, which made him become her lover, though he never realized the extent of his power. Well, what was that?
Well, pity isn't really love.
No.
No, not at all.
No.
Well, what is love?
Well, I think of pity in giving a beggar some money, but love implies some mutuality.
Compassion
there
is
is a
different than
sympathy
pity.
there, but this turned out not to be what he expected.
Pity is a high relating to a lower being in that person's eyes. So, yeah.
Well, then he goes on to say, when he talked about why it was falling apart, he liked that new stillness of desirelessness. There was nothing new or fresh. It was automatic. He's talking about what he's getting away from. There was nothing new or fresh. It was automatic, driven from the will. Even she and her true self hadn't wanted it. It was automatic in her. Well, what is it that he wants here?
Well, one of the things he says here, and he's on the second island, he says, the islander said to himself, well, he doesn't say it, the narrator, the islander said to himself, is this happiness? He said to himself,
Yeah,
I'm turned into a dream. I feel nothing. I do not know what I feel. Yet, it seems to me I'm happy.
And then it starts to go apart.
I'm happy.
I'm
It
happy.
starts to go fall apart.
Happy without
Right, yeah.
feeling, smelling,
Right.
no senses at all.
Therefore, I must be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why does he go from, starts off with a big island, or not real big, I mean small, then goes to this smaller yet island, and he ends up on almost just pure rocks.
Rocks.
Yeah. Why that progression? What does that mean?
A descent into madness.
Descent. That's what I would
A descent
say.
into
He's becoming
madness.
more insular, to coin a
Yeah.
phrase.
Right,
Yeah.
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 He's losing
I mean,
it.
he's got some real problems here.
Yeah.
You know, is this this is kind of a parable, isn't it, or a myth? I mean, it talks about the Hesperides. Well, you know what those were?
Those are the goddesses of
the
sunset.
golden apples, yeah.
Well, they're the ones that are for sunset.
The two nymphs,
right,
or three,
right,
or however
right,
many
yeah.
Hercules had to get
Yeah.
gone to get the golden apples.
Right.
How does that refer to the story?
Made me think it was about myth. Or
Well, it makes a
we were
statement
taking
in
this
it,
in a
yeah.
mythical place. And he talks about it.
Yeah,
Was
he-
this
he-
the Isle of the Blessed? I don't know where it is.
Yeah,
That's the
he
problem.
says, to escape more of this sort of awareness, our islander daily concentrated upon his material island. Why should it not be Happy Island at last? Why not the last small isle of the Hesperides, the perfect place, all filled with its own gracious, blossom-like spirit? A minute world,
Minute.
a minute world of pure perfection made by man himself.
That's what he wanted to make his own
right,
world.
right,
It says announces that at the
Said that
very
right
beginning.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, this is, I'm not sure the difference between a metaphor and a myth, but obviously the island is a myth, right? Is a metaphor for something. What's it a metaphor for?
Well, to address myth, my definition of myth is it's a somewhat factual story that elicits a deep metaphorical
What-
truth.
What does the metaphor of the island mean?
It's a place of existence for him away from the larger entity in which the world functions.
Well, he talks about it as being a nest with an egg in it,
right.
and he wanted to be the egg.
Well, remember, he wanted to start writing a book, and as he moved from island to island,
Yeah,
the impetus to write the book got less and less.
He lost that.
And as he moved, his library
make of
got
that?
smaller and smaller.
But he
What do
went
you
to
make
the
of that?
island for happiness, okay? And I think he thought the island was a place where he could find happiness.
Yes.
Sure.
And
And what was happiness? Security and control,
but
right?
he didn't talk about the island being an inorganic substance. He talked
Well, the
about the
island was
islands
alive.
As alive.
as another human being.
Right, it's alive.
That it was alive, okay?
Well-
I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
Well, I think you might be, because nature is an environment, and you relate to it as something you can sense that's alive. At least
Well,
that's what he wants here.
The metaphor there is the first island was alive, the second island got sparser, and when he ended up on the third island, there's nothing there but rocks.
But he kept
Well,
on
there
trying.
were-
didn't he,
Right,
at each
Yeah, but he was
island?
going the wrong way.
Yeah, right.
Well, there were the elements.
It was kind of like his soul was
Right.
corresponding to the
Yes.
islands,
Yes.
getting barer and barer. And you asked a question, I thought it was pretty good. I forgot what it was.
I forgot what it was. It was brilliant, though.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Well, even on the last island, he says, I must conquer the snow, this new white brute force which had accumulated against him. Remember?
Sure.
Yeah, he was pretty much snowed in.
That's comes his raison d'etre.
I know, but the snow is alive too to him almost.
It's something he has to fight
And
against.
there
Does the snow end up killing him?
It doesn't say so.
No,
He
it
doesn't
doesn't
die.
say so,
But yeah.
He
yeah,
doesn't
That's what
die.
I
Well
got
be
out of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Well, I mean, he got
Well,
to
we
the
don't
point
know.
where he didn't even want to see the supply ship come anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as much
he's insulating himself.
Right, you're completely removed from society when you aren't even don't even want any food to eat.
Do you have to go on an island to do that?
I think it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You know, you can go to the
Metaphorically,
desert.
you can do that. in your
You can
mind.
do that.
Yeah.
You can go to,
And it's the same way with happiness.
So
You don't have to
make
go to
your
an
own
island.
Yeah.
no matter where you go, there you are.
Right.
Well, it's too bad Joe missed this. I was very interested.
Yeah, I was hoping that he could be here too.
The
because-
psychiatrist can work on it with
Yeah,
us. So
he'd have a field day with
Well,
this.
we don't have the categories maybe to handle it.
I mean, one of the things I see when he ends up on the last island, he's actually a prisoner. So he's gone from being born on an island, living in society, and then slowly removing
the master,
himself.
too.
Right, and then he was just Mr. Cathcart, sir, and now he has nobody, but he's in a self-imposed prison of his own doing.
Yep.
And that's where there's something about the soul there that I'm not getting.
Well, he
Has he
didn't mind
perfected
that.
Why in the story is his name only mentioned
Cathcart.
once?
Right.
Only once in the story. What's the author telling us about
Well, it was the cook and the daughter that called him that, Mr.
Yes,
Cathcart.
yeah.
I have to look at
I
another
know, but
D.H.
that's the only
Lawrence.
reference to his name.
Maybe-
I think he was losing his personality through the whole thing, and then by the last island, you use the word soul, and I think that fits. I mean, he was down to nothing. I mean, he didn't
No.
have any. He got the mail in, which included a check, and he didn't even look at it. He just
Right.
broke off
Right.
all communication.
Well,
with it.
listen to this, guys. Only he still derived his single satisfaction from being alone, absolutely alone, with the space soaking into him, the gray sea alone, and the footing of his sea-washed island. No other contact, nothing human to bring its horror into contact with him. Only space, damp, twilight, sea-washed space. This was the bread of his soul. Now, is he talking ironically? Is that a judgment? Or is he saying there's still something he wants that's there? I mean,
I think that's a stage he was at, and then it goes worse. It gets.
yeah, but that doesn't get us inside of what's motivating him. I mean, we're looking at it from the outside. Maybe we're supposed to, because this is a narrator talking about it that way.
Maybe this is perverse interpretation, but he's into self-abnegation, and so
Yes.
maybe he's perfected it at the end, and he's achieved it, just standing there in the frozen waste.
Well, not quite, because he says you can't win against the elements.
Right.
He's acknowledging defeat there. You know, he says the elements, the elements. His mind repeated the word dumbly.
Or maybe when he thought he perfected it, he had this.
He thought he
This
had.
idea.
I mean, look how hard he fought. He first he dug.
Dug. Yeah.
He didn't have to do that, and then he comes back and he makes something to eat.
He ended up in a padded cell, is what I thought.
Well, we just say
This
that.
reminds me where Lawrence, I'm thinking where he set this, because I was on the Aryan Islands earlier this year, and in Irish history, the hermits used to go out to the island, I mean just a rock, and they lived in rock houses, and they have to rely on a ferry boat to bring them their food, and they were there on a spiritual inward journey.
Sure.
That's what they were doing. And he keeps referring to these islands getting smaller and smaller. And having talked to the islanders, to live on an island, it takes a special type of person to live on a small island. It really
So maybe he
does.
did perfect it. Well, he fought against it.
Did you identify anything spiritual?
No, I think it's exactly the opposite of what you're describing. Is that they're going there and finding something that's positive and spiritual. He's going there, and it's empty. It's just he's finding nothing. He's just going
Right.
nuts.
So he
but I don't think
missed what he was looking for. If he had gone with
Well,
a
he didn't
different
get there,
attitude.
at least.
Right. Yeah. He didn't find his
But
soul there. He
the
just left.
purpose of this is a spiritual pilgrimage of
Right,
some
yes,
sort.
Yeah. I agree. Absolutely.
And you notice how he talks about when he's talking about living in space, surrounded and crowded.
Right, there's a lot about time and space
And
in
then
there,
he
too.
moves into time, and that's
Right.
when the history starts closing in on him, and that's on the first island.
Yes. Yeah. There's several sections
You know,
there
you can't
early
you
on
can't
about
be
time.
a person without having a history, I don't think. But he's trying to abnegate the self.
Are you saying that the zombies represent history? I think that's a good
Well,
I
guys,
thought it
they represent the
represented
past.
craziness. It was just,
No, I didn't think of it until Jake said it, unless that's not what you meant, but it
It goes
sounds
to the
me.
past.
Oh, no, I did
Yeah.
mean that.
A
They
link to
do
the past.
represent your past.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the island, for him, the island's alive.
Right.
Not only with the flora and fauna, but past associations of people who struggle there and
Right.
were searching for things, not what he's searching for.
do you think that what Les was describing is the monks were going towards something, did a journey towards something? Do you think he was going towards something or going away from something?
Oh, I think he was attempting to go for something. Yeah, I think he sincerely thought he could create the perfect life. Okay, that's why he went to the island, and that's why he hired all those people. So I think he was attempting
Well-
to
Oh,
go.
just the opposite, actually. Maybe we're running out of time,
Yeah.
but the nest with one egg is to get rid
Right.
of people.
Since we're in a time, did you like it?
Oh, great.
Very good.
Yeah, it was
I
great.
thought it was well written,
Great.
very well written.
Lots of
Absolutely.
layers, and we just touched a few of them. I
Barely
think,
touched it.
Yeah, so
Very good.
Thank you
Very
all.
good.
thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. Join us next time as we discuss another great selection. As Aristotle said, the best way to learn is to get together in small groups and discuss great ideas.